Mary Louise Cook here. Welcome on into another episode of FCS All-In. Today's episode will feature a special conversation between Big Sky Commissioner Tom Westerstall and Thor Bjorn, Rhode Island Athletic Director and Chair of the FCS Committee, as well as segments from the conferences around the FCS and contributions from national correspondent Sam Herder of Hero Sports and Craig Haley of Stats Perform. With the first week of conference play in the rearview mirror, it's time to go all in.
Welcome to the Missouri Valley Football Conference Extra Point. Come from behind wins was the theme at conference play opening weekend, with Missouri State, SIU, and Western Illinois combining to outscore their opponents 76-0 in the second half of their games. 35 unanswered points. That's what Southern Illinois scored to pick up a come-from-behind win over in-state rival Illinois State. The Salukis trailed 17-0 in the third quarter before a 70-yard kickoff return from Isaiah Hartrup sparked the Dogs. The redshirt freshman had a breakout game, 7 catches for 82 yards, including, arguably, the catch of the season so far, a one-handed grab in the fourth. SIU senior receiver Landon Lenore topped 2,000 career receiving yards, and the Dogs improved to 3-1 on the year. Western Illinois picked up their first win of the season in dramatic fashion. The Leathernecks set a new program and Missouri Valley football comeback record, 28 points, securing a last-second 38-35 win over Youngstown State on Mason Laramie's game-winning field goal with 5 seconds left. Down 35-7, Western orchestrated a 28-point turnaround in less than 16 minutes. South Dakota State running back Pierre Strong Jr. is having a monster season, powering the Jacks to a 3-0 start. The senior ran for 3 straight games of 100-plus yards, most recently rushing 20 times for a season-high 150 yards. Strong is averaging nearly 10 yards per carry, and his 133 rushing yards per game is second in the league. This week's schedule features all 11 Valley teams in action, highlighted by the 114th meeting between North Dakota and North Dakota State.
I'm Eric Danner with the WAC report for FCS All-In. This week features one of the most anticipated games in WAC football this season, the Battle of the Piney Woods. Sam Houston taking on Stephen F. Austin. This game will be played at NRG Stadium in Houston, the home of the Houston Texans. This will be the 11th straight matchup between these teams in H-Town. This rivalry goes all the way back to 1923. The Bearcats and Lumberjacks have played 95 times, with Sam Houston coming out on top in 57 of those matchups. The two teams did not play last year, SFA playing a fall schedule, while Sam Houston played in the spring. This was the first time these two teams had not played in a season since World War II. The Bearcats have won the past 9 meetings. The Lumberjacks' last victory was in 2010. We talked with coaches and players from both teams at the WAC Football Preview about what this game means for both schools.
Such a great rivalry. I remember my first year, and we were fortunate enough to win that game. I remember walking off the field with my athletic director, Bobby Williams, and I said, "You didn't explain the intensity that we were going to feel this Saturday afternoon." I said, "You sort of downplayed it."
Oh, we always look forward to that one. That one's circled on everybody's calendar, whether you're a player, coach, fan, alumni. That's why it's such a marquee game, and played there at NRG, and we have 30, 40,000 people there.
The atmosphere is crazy. You know, we ride in, see all the alumni, and get into the NRG stadium. And when playing that game, it's tough. You know, for 4 hours we hate each other.
Sam Houston, you know, they're the team to beat right now. Everybody in the nation thinks that, or knows that, you know, they're the national champions, but that's just a good challenge for us.
It's exciting. The rivalry's really deep. They're a good football team. They're getting better every year. So that's a game that we look forward to and love the atmosphere. We love how many people get out there and the exposure we get. So we're excited to go out there and play them again.
It's going to be very exciting. We missed it. We wish we could have played them last year, but they played in the spring, and it is what it is. But we're looking forward to it, get some revenge on them. We haven't won in about 8 or 9 years, so we look forward to changing that this year.
I try to save hate for like world hunger and those kind of things, but for about 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon, Sam Houston State and SFA hate each other.
I think we'll look up October 2nd. That won't just be a marquee game for the conference. I think it has a chance to be a marquee game across the country.
Number 1 ranked and undefeated Sam Houston taking on 3-1 Stephen F. Austin. This is a 4 p.m. kickoff Central Time and will be on Bally's in the Houston area and ESPN Plus digitally. Abilene Christian has won 3 games in a row. This week the Wildcats play their first game in the AQ7. ACU hosting Central Arkansas at 6 Central. The Bears are just outside of the AFCA FCS Top 25. Tarleton makes the trip to Eastern Kentucky. EKU is receiving votes in the coaches poll. That is a 3 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff. And Dixie State plays their 3rd ranked team in a row at number 3 ranked South Dakota State. That's at 6 Central. All those games are on ESPN Plus. For FCS All-In, I'm Eric Danner.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Wistersill, Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference. I'm here with the Chair of the FCS Football Committee, Thor Bjorn. Thor, great to have you here, and looking forward to our chat today.
Tom, thanks for reaching out. I'm really excited to spend time with you as well, and this is really a lot of fun. I can't believe here we go. It's all starting up.
So exciting. So, just thought it'd be cool to just have a little chat with you as the committee starts to begin its work of evaluating the teams as we look ahead. Playoff time will be here before we know it. First of all, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. We'll just have a quick conversation, and then maybe sometime down the line we do it again. But
great.
I think first I just want to say thank you on behalf of everybody involved with FCS football, you and the other committee members. It's a lot of work. You have a day job, obviously, that takes a lot of time and attention. And I know football is a labor of love for all of us in this business, but just want to say thanks for your time and effort to being part of the committee.
Oh, Tom, thank you. It's I've enjoyed it. I've loved it. This is going into year 4, and it's been a really great opportunity to meet some wonderful people and obviously support a sport that I believe so much in. So no, thank you. It's great to be part of this.
Yeah, it's great. So what's your biggest kind of enjoyment as part of the committee? What do you point to as what you look forward to the most?
I'll tell you, when we get together for selection, the members of the committee, the friendships, the real friendships, lifelong friendships that I've made in that first 3 years is pretty special. And, I really enjoy being around the members of the committee. I enjoy getting together in Indianapolis for the selection. The first time through was fun and really, I think, having a great sense of guys that have been around for a while. They kind of take you under their wing, and so that's what I've been trying to do, going into year 3 and now year 4, because it is a little bit different and there's a lot to it. But it's great to be around the people. But then, when I got on the committee, people would say, oh, the travels can be a challenge. And I love it. I've been to some really great venues over the last 3 years and again, met some great people on campuses and it's been a blast. I love going to these different locations. I love seeing how they're running their events and building, again, really solid relationships. So that's been a really unexpected surprise of how much I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's such a people business, right? I mean, we have friends all across the country because of the work we're able to do. So it's great to hear. So on the flip side now, what's the biggest challenge as a member of the committee?
I think when you get to that spot where you're really trying to find those last few teams to get in, I would even say maybe the seeded teams. If you're looking at 7, 8, 9, 10, where are people trying to fit in there, or who deserves to be in that spot to get that bye, and then equally who's that last group that needs to get in. And we take it very seriously and spend a lot of time and really have some good discussions about those areas. And but there's going to be people left out, and there's going to be people frustrated or upset about that. But I think that's certainly the biggest challenge, but it's also the greatest responsibility that we have, in my opinion.
Right. Yep. Yeah, no, I'm sure that's incredibly hard at that moment. So
it is.
It's been It's been a wild non-conference schedule for FCS. Had some incredible wins over FBS teams. There's been some great interconference competition. And so how does the committee look at, just the non-conference schedule as a whole, the results, FBS wins, quality FCS wins? How do you get through all of that information?
You really, every one of those games is important, and every member of the committee, actually, we have a toolbox that we get to use and determine, where we put greater strengths or values, and we all basically get to make our own choices. What, as an individual, what do I think is most important? And certainly that head-to-head competition, or that, hey, how did so-and-so do against, team X and Y, and that all means something. It's all important. And we know in football, you could have an off day, but when you're only playing 11 games, you don't really have that luxury. It's a little different than basketball, where you could have an off day. FBS wins are huge. And obviously, as you said, there's been some great wins this year. FCS teams over FBS teams, but I think that's important, and they are rare. And so we have to put some great stock into the value of that. The JMU game versus Weber State this year, that's great to see teams, playing some really top level competition crossing the country to do that. Certainly JMU in our league and Weber and yours, I mean, that's big. And that was important. I've seen a couple other games that have been like that too, from different leagues, and any chance that people can play top competition in other leagues, it brings great value. So I think it's really important. And is one better than another? I don't know if it's better than another, but I think if you're willing to put yourself out there and risk playing some great head-to-head FCS non-league competition, that's really important too.
Yeah, I'm really in favor of finding ways to make those happen, right? I mean, it's great for football. It's great for the FCS since we have the playoffs set up the way we are. Getting those great non-conference games between FCS opponents is so important. And yeah, we're spread out all over the country. Doesn't make it easy, but I'd love to find ways to keep rewarding those teams that, do like JMU did, right? Hopped on a plane and flew 2,500 miles across the country to play a football game. And to encourage those to happen between the teams, I think is really important for our future.
It's great when you think about some of the top programs in the top, leagues, and by top leagues, I mean leagues that have had multiple bids in the championship over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, that's takes some nerve, and that takes some guts to do that. And you're right; they deserve, both teams deserve credit for playing those games. And certainly, if you go out and win, that brings some great value, and that'll be talked about a lot, especially whether it's about seeding or whether it's about an at-large spot. There's great value there, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, that's great. So you talked about this toolbox. So I guess my next question is kind of the data that you have in front of you, and then the eye test.
Yeah.
So you now there's 11 of you, I believe, right? 11 on the committee. So talk a little bit about that, please. Kind of the data discussion versus the eye test in the room.
It's the data probably seems to play out stronger. But when you look at the reps from the various leagues, and that's another thing that's great about this committee, is there's a voice from each league that obviously you try to take your hat off. I take my CAA hat off and put it off in the corner when we're around the table. But when it comes to talk about CAA teams, I can do that, because I've seen them and I'm a little bit closer connected, just like, a member of any other league. And that committee is going to do the same thing. I think if you have a chance to really watch some games, there's value there. We'll sit back and actually get some shortened games that are sent to us from the NCAA. And this year, Chad Tolliver and I, from our NCAA liaison, who is amazing. He is incredible to work with. We'll go through and try to identify games that make sense, that either are teams two teams that are playing each other that we're really looking at, or better yet, if there's some of those cross-conference matchups, that we'll try to get a sense of what that looks like. Those are shortened games, but at least we can use the eye test a little bit. The RACs, the regional advisory committees, Tom, are another huge importance. I've certainly shared that with anybody that asked. I was on the RAC prior to, that's the acronym for the regional advisory committee. And I was on the RAC for 2 years prior to getting on the committee, and I had no concept of how important that work was. Zero, none. When I got on the committee, first thing, it made all the sense in the world. All of a sudden, the light comes on, and I'm saying to myself, wow, I see how important this is. When you're trying to slaughter, you're trying to justify why team X or team Y should be in, but yet the RAC hasn't had him in a certain placement over the course of that time. It's important. And so, when I look at the RACs, that especially for the non-regions that I'm working with, it tells me a lot, because you have to put a lot of faith and confidence in those RAC members. A lot of them they're certainly led by committee members, but then there are also people from their schools in that region. You have to put confidence in their assessments. That's important. And so that's another huge value. And then, kind of comparing where are we with the national polls that we can look at or whatnot. So, you really take full advantage of every piece of data that you can get and try to kind of go through reasons why certain things make sense or why they don't. Injuries. I mean, that's another one when you think about, hey, what happened with this game? I see that, team X had been scoring 40 points a game, but they only had, 17 this week. What's going on? Well, here's why. And that all that information is important, or this could be why. So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lots of moving parts there, but
no doubt.
That's what makes it interesting, right? So that's great. So last question for this one is, so pretend I'm a new coach at the FCS level. I'm taking over a program that's, middle of the pack, maybe towards the bottom. I need to find a way to build a schedule along with my conference wins to help make a run in the NCAA tournament. What advice would you give me as a new coach trying to schedule non-conference games to help get somewhere in the tournament?
Tom, if that person's looking to try to make, get into the tournament that year, and that's what I'm assuming you're saying, those 3 non-conference games or 4 non-conference games or 5 non-conference games are incredibly important, and they should be against either FCS teams, other FCS teams in other leagues. And because you are never penalized for getting an FCS win. At least in my 3 years, you're not penalized for that. That's important. There is a lot of discussion about playing Division IIs and the value of that. And I think there's members of the committee, and if I'll be transparent, that doesn't bring great value. There's some great Division II teams, but where are we where are you in terms of playing other FCS programs? And then obviously, if you can play that FBS game, be competitive. Hey, if you can get a win like this year, like a lot of teams have, that's just an extra bonus and an extra boost. But I think, scheduling FCS games that you think that you can win, that would be a really good approach. Now, again, if you're scheduling really the bottom teams in other leagues that maybe are a one bid league, does that help you? Yeah, I think it still does. It gets you part of the conversation. If you're 8-3 and with 8 FCS wins, you're part of a conversation, and that's what you should try to get to. 7 as well, for sure. Even 6 now, you can be part of a conversation. But you get to 7 or 8, you're right there. You're right there as part of the conversation. That just seems how the math has worked.
Yeah, no, that's great. Good advice, and I'll make sure our coaches hear that.
There you go.
Hear that from your mouth there. So that's awesome. Well, Thor, thanks so much for your time. Really enjoyed the conversation today. Very enlightening, and I look forward to doing it again. Maybe in a month or so, we'll have some more information. But thanks so much for your time today.
Tom, thank you for having me, and I'd love to come back and join you anytime.
After a strong performance outside of the league, all focus is on conference play in Week 5 of CA football with 4 games on the slate. Before we preview Saturday's action, let's take a quick look back at the lone conference game last Saturday as William & Mary and Elon put on a show for those who love great quarterback play. Elon senior Davis Cheek threw for a career-high 384 yards and 3 touchdowns to help rally the Phoenix from an early 21-point deficit, but it was the Tribe that was able to pull out a 34-31 victory as true freshman Darius Wilson passed for a career-high 198 yards and 2 TDs and ran for a team-best 95 yards and a score. The effort earned Wilson National Freshman Player of the Week honors from Stats Perform as William & Mary improved to 3-1 for the first time since 2014. Highlighting this week's schedule is a top 25 showdown between 3rd-ranked James Madison and 25th-ranked New Hampshire. The Dukes have been dominant on both sides of the ball and building a 3-0 record, outscoring their opponents 160-41. New Hampshire head coach Sean McDonald knows his team is facing a formidable challenge.
They don't rebuild down there; they reload. And they've reloaded the gun pretty good. They've stocked it with some pretty good bullets, so we will have our hands full when they arrive.
New Hampshire saw its 3-game winning streak snapped at ACC member Pitt last week, but JMU head coach Kurt Scanetti is well aware of how dangerous the Wildcats can be on their home field.
Last time JMU went up there, they were 2-5 going into the game, and they waxed JMU pretty well. That's going to be the message to our guys. We got to go up there and really play well and execute, play clean game.
Rhode Island is off to a 3-0 start for the first time since 2005 and moved into the top 25 this week. For the Rams to keep their record perfect, they will need to do something they've never done, which is defeat Stony Brook. Rhode Island head coach Jim Fleming tells us the keys to his team snapping the streak against the Seawolves.
They've been a tough out for us. I don't know if I can point to any specific reason, but I do know that when you're looking at this year, we're going to have to be able to play very well on all 3 phases of the game.
Stony Brook is looking to bounce back from a tough loss last week where they piled up plenty of yards but were hurt by too many mistakes. Seawolves head coach Chuck Priori says getting those cleaned up will get his team back on the winning track.
Statistics say we're not doing very well in the red zone, converting things, and our turnover margin is not very good. And I do think that's why we're not a better overall football team.
9th-ranked Delaware is back in action on Saturday against UAlbany. Blue Hens head coach Danny Rocco has seen a lot of positives from his team to this point, but would like to see his defense get back to the level they reached last spring.
Well, kind of the opposite of what we were a year ago. In the spring, we didn't give up any big plays. We just didn't give any up. We're not playing badly on defense, but we're just given too many big play opportunities.
UAlbany has faced one of the most difficult schedules in FCS to this point, and it doesn't get any easier with a road game against the Blue Hens. However, Great Danes head coach Greg Gattuso says his team welcomes the challenge of another top opponent.
It doesn't get any easier. We have a road trip here to Delaware, who's ranked in the top 10, and the beat goes on. So we understand that, and we're not going to panic.
Richmond returns home on Saturday to take on Elon. Starting quarterback Joe Mancuso suffered a broken finger in last week's game at Virginia Tech, meaning Bo English takes over for the Spiders. Richmond head coach Russ Huseman says the offense won't change with English at the controls.
The offense we run, and Bo's been practicing it. We're going to game plan and run our offense that we run.
All 3 of Elon's FCS games this season have been decided by 3 points or less. Head coach Tony Trisciani thinks his team is very close to turning the corner.
When you go back and you watch the film, there was probably more good than bad, but there was just enough bad to lose by 3. And so, we're going to learn from the bad and build off the good.
Here's a look at Saturday's schedule around CAA football.
In the ranked conference matchup of the year, UC Davis picked up a road win over Weber State to remain undefeated this season. Redshirt freshman Trent Hopkins was the one to score the game-winning touchdown with only 27 seconds left of the game to lift the Aggies above the Wildcats 17-14. Another team to remain undefeated in the league was Montana after picking up their first conference victory over Cal Poly. The Grizz continue to lead the way for the league in the national polls as we see yet again the Big Sky Conference has been very well represented. And the third and only other undefeated team in the league is none other than Eastern Washington, as the Eagles were led to a road victory over Southern Utah by back-to-back Big Sky Player of the Week Eric Barrier. To earn the honor, the Eagle quarterback threw for over 500 yards in back-to-back weeks. He also surpassed over 10,000 yards passing in the process. After earning the conference honor for the 3rd time this season, I spoke with Barrier about the significance. Let's take a look. Eric, you've had 4 opportunities to win this award so far this season, and you've already won it 3 out of the 4 times. What has been working so well for you this season?
Just chemistry with my guys, it just all coming together. It started out with the spring season, then we added little touches in the summer, and then now we just all letting it display in the fall.
Do you feel that spring season really prepared you better than maybe those other teams that didn't have the opportunity to have the spring season now that we're actually here in the fall?
Yeah, I think the spring season helped out a lot just because you got extra games in that counted, but technically didn't count. So, it gave me an extra opportunity to just finish up on some stuff that I needed to work on. And then now it's just all starting to show in the fall.
You threw for over 500 yards for the second straight week. Did momentum play a role in your success this past weekend?
I think it's just going out there weekend, every week, just preparing the same. I don't switch my approach up. I just go out there, every week, beginning of the week, starting Sunday, watching film, and then go on from there, from practice like how I play, and then it just transition to the game.
All right. Well, over 10,000 yards that you have thrown for. When you think about the history that you've been able to make, what would you say to, a younger version of yourself looking at all these accomplishments you've had so far?
I probably would tell myself, it's crazy to think about because, I always thought I could do certain stuff like this because I set goals for myself as a freshman, and then you never really believe it until it actually comes. So, I'll just tell myself, always believe in yourself, just because even though it might not go well in the beginning, you always have brighter days in the end.
For the full interview with Barry 8, be sure to visit Big Sky Social. And with the continuation of conference season today, here is a rundown of all the Week 5 action, with number 4 Montana traveling to number 6 Eastern Washington to highlight this weekend's action. With the contest airing on ESPN2, the Eagles will be putting their 18-game win streak on the line, while the Grizz will be looking to find their first win on the Inferno. And that's all for the Big Sky. Be sure to follow at Big Sky FB for around-the-clock coverage.
Hi, I'm Denise Thompson, and I'm joined by Craig Haley of Stats Perform and Sam Herder of Hero Sports. It's time to talk FCS football. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Real well, Denise.
Doing good. Thanks again for having us.
Well, it's definitely another great week of football, another amazing week of FCS football. And so for Craig, for you, what was the most surprising outcome from last week and why?
Well, there's always surprises. You're right, Denise. I guess if I was going to pick one, I'd go with Northern Colorado beating Northern Arizona in overtime in the Big Sky, because Northern Arizona had beaten Arizona a week before, a Power 5 win. So to have that happen back to back is just a little unusual, but it's just fun. I think Northern Colorado, maybe we've all overlooked them a little bit because they hadn't played since 2019, and they're off to a good start under Coach McCaffrey. His son's there, of course, Dylan, and the defense has done well. I just think when you're a young, struggling team, you have to be in games like this, and then that step is to win games like this. And this is a huge, huge win for them, beating an NAU team that beat Arizona.
And kind of piggybacking off of that, Sam, in your opinion, right? Everyone knows this is just not facts. This is just Sam's opinion. When a team pulls off an FBS upset and then the next week loses to an FCS game, is it more so the result of just maybe a little bit too much pressure of coming such a high win? Or typically, do you think it's the opposing team that's rising to the challenge?
Yeah, I think for the most part, you can usually chalk it up to kind of having that emotional letdown performance. I especially look at when Holy Cross beat UConn. The next week they lost to Merrimack, and that was probably an emotional letdown performance there. Even after Jacksonville State beat Florida State, they barely beat North Alabama. They didn't lose, but they almost lost, and that was kind of an emotional letdown performance there. I think with Northern Arizona and Northern Colorado, there was probably a little bit of an emotional letdown, but at the same time, I think in this specific game, these two programs are probably on par with each other as far as, the teams on the field. Whereas, if Holy Cross played Merrimack again this week for a second time, I think Holy Cross would win, pretty decisively, where I think Northern Colorado and Northern Arizona are both kind of on par with each other.
Sam just kind of hinted at it a little bit, Craig, but there's been a good amount of FCS, FBS matchups and most of them are complete for the season. What were your top 2 games this season?
Yeah, and what Sam said about the emotions of these games. I mean, your emotions are really sky high when you're playing an FBS opponent, trying to prove yourself. So, I think the ones that stand out are Montana, beating Washington in the first week, where it was a ranked FBS program, and those kind of wins don't always come around. So the Grizz just have been terrific with that defense, and then that Jacksonville State win at Florida State. I mean, on the final play, a 59-yard touchdown pass against a program that's, a brand program like Florida State. I think those two stand out, the Grizz and Jacksonville State as the 2 biggest out of 10 so far.
Well, it is October, and it's that time of the year where the weather starts to change, but we'll also see some changes, or will we, in the predicted order of finish for some of the conferences. What are your take on a few, Sam?
Yeah, I think for some conferences like the Southland, the CAA, the Missouri Valley, the Big Sky, I think the top 3 teams that finish in those conferences probably won't be that big of a surprise for the most part. I think it'll shake out kind of how a lot of us expected it to in the preseason. But then I go to the SoCon, and I think that race will be really interesting because you have, a team like Samford that nearly knocked off East Tennessee State this last weekend. ETSU is looking like the favorite. And you even have Mercer, who looked really good and handled Furman, and Furman is usually kind of a top 3-4 team. And so I think the SoCon, the order of finish there is probably going to be a lot different than what a lot of us projected in the preseason.
Hey, and that's okay, because that's what makes football and makes it exciting come November. Craig, let's talk a little bit about teams that did not play this spring. How are they faring in your opinion?
Yeah, great question, Denise. I mean, 27 of the 128 FCS programs this year, and that includes St. Thomas, which was on the Division III level in the 2020-21 school year. 27 out of 128 didn't play all of last year. And I would have thought it would have taken now to get into October before everybody's, kind of back to form. But I just think these teams are a little more cohesive early on than maybe some of us thought. I mean, we mentioned Northern Colorado, and then, in the same league, Montana State's a national power, and, the Ivy League's all back to playing, and, Princeton and Dartmouth are back to their big winning ways. So I just think everybody's, come back pretty strong, which is good to see. I mean, I kind of felt this leading up to this that, we're used to individual players maybe missing a season with an injury and coming back a year later and doing well. I think here we're just looking at a collective group coming back from a year off, and it's, highly possible you could come back strong, and a lot of these teams are.
What's your take, Sam, on a few that didn't play this past spring?
Yeah, it's hard to really gauge, how, because it's kind of a mixed bag. There's been some teams that played in the spring that looked really good in the spring. And then we expected them to look really good in the fall, just that, have it, turn over right away into the fall and have a good season. Like Monmouth comes to mind, where maybe they aren't, it seems like maybe they've taken a step back compared to the spring. Meanwhile, you've had Montana State, a team that hadn't played a football game in quite some time, a new coaching staff. So people maybe wondered if maybe they'll take a step back just because of their time off. And they've, looked like they've been, it looked like they were playing in the spring just because they've been executing at a pretty high level. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I do think teams like Central Connecticut State, Central Arkansas, granted Central Arkansas did play in the fall, then even Alcorn State, and maybe even a team like Sacramento State, teams that had pretty high preseason expectations that didn't play in the spring. I think those are like some teams that maybe aren't, reaching their preseason expectations so far.
What are your thoughts, Craig? Is it getting a little early for annual top programs such as Central Arkansas and Weber State?
Yeah, I mean, both teams are off to 1-3 starts, which, is a byproduct of their difficult schedules. But hey, you do have to go out and win. I mean, they've put themselves in, a little margin for error here. I mean, Central Arkansas moving forward at 1-3. I mean, they still have a game with a Subdivision 1 opponent, which wouldn't count on their playoff resume. And unless they win their conference, the AQ7, they probably can't lose the rest of the year to make the playoffs again. And that might be the case for Weber too. I mean, they play all Big Sky teams going forward for 1 and 3. So, they could probably get in with 6 more wins, but then you're leaving yourself in a precarious spot, with say a 7-4 record. I just think these teams have no margin for error. They're national powers that were in the top 20 going into the year, and Central Arkansas and Weber, they have to get it going soon.
On the other side, Sam, are there any surprise teams out there? Maybe any 3-0s that we should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, one that comes to mind is Rhode Island, who's 3-0 right now. Now their 3 non-conference opponents haven't been all that strong. I think right now Rhode Island has a massy strength of schedule of 98, so they might be 3-0, but that doesn't mean you're automatically a top 25 team if you are 3-0. But just looking at Rhode Island's schedule, they have a chance to be 5-1 come mid-October, and then in early November, they play UMass, who's one of the bottom teams in the FBS, and so that's a potential FBS win right there for Rhode Island. And so, I mean, Rhode Island could finish like 7-4 with an FBS win, and usually with that record out of the CAA, that should get you in the playoffs. And so, I think Rhode Island is kind of that surprise undefeated team right now, and also UT Martin. They're 3-1 overall, but 3-0 against the FCS, and with wins against Jacksonville State, another solid win against Samford. Those are 2 good wins right now, and so UT Martin is kind of a team we haven't talked a whole lot about out of the OVC, but they are off to a really good start.
So we all like a good game. So Craig, are there any under the radar game of the week picks for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's a huge conference day today. North Dakota State at North Dakota, Montana at Eastern Washington, and that rivalry game with Sam Houston and Stephen F. Austin. So there's a lot of main matchups. But yeah, you're right. There's some I'll give you 2 for under the radar, and they're a little connected. I mean, Merrimack's hosting Duquesne in the Northeast Conference, and Merrimack has had off to a strong start. They're not eligible yet for the NEC title in their 3rd season, but they're part of the standings here as a conference game. So that's a big one, hosting Duquesne, which has been a power there. And Merrimack has handed the only loss to Holy Cross this year, which has been phenomenal on the road with the wins they've had, Yale, Monmouth, UConn. So their only losses at home to Merrimack, and today they're facing a 2-0 Harvard team. So it's fascinating, those kind of games where you might not go to them initially, and then when you look at it, like, wow, these are important games. So yeah, Merrimack hosting Duquesne, Holy Cross hosting Harvard, terrific under the radar kind of games.
Do you agree, Sam, or do you have another one to add to the mix?
Yeah, those are definitely good ones. I really like, kind of going off of what I just said about Rhode Island, they do host Stony Brook, and that'll probably be their toughest opponent to date so far. Stony Brook isn't necessarily a CAA power, but they are always a competitive team that pushes teams, and so this is a chance for Rhode Island to improve to 4-0. St. Thomas is going to San Diego. St. Thomas is one of the newest FCS teams that basically got kicked out of D3 for being way too good and beating up on teams, and they got their first Division I win last week, and now they go to San Diego, who historically has been the top team in the Pioneer Football League. I'm not sure if that's the case this year, especially with USD losing to Davidson last week, but that's another game too, just to see kind of where St. Thomas stacks up against one of the better teams in the conference that they just joined.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be another great day of FCS football and another great week. And can't wait for us to get there next week and for the rest of the season to discuss more FCS football. Thanks again, Craig and Sam, for joining us here on FCS All-In. And until next time, have a good day.
Hello from the Big South Network studio. I'm Mark Bryant with a preview of Week 5 for the football season. 5 games on tap for the Big South, including 3 conference clashes. North Carolina A&T plays its first ever Big South game today, hosting Robert Morris at 1. Both squads are coming off wins last week and are meeting on the field for the first time. The Aggies have won 8 consecutive conference openers, and head coach Sam Washington had this to say about today's historic Big South game.
This being the first conference game, I think it's very important, that we represent the conference well, and we represent this university well and this program well. So it's a big deal for us.
North Carolina A&T has also won 7 straight home games dating back to 2018, and Coach Washington provides his thoughts on Robert Morris.
They play very hard, and that's one of the things that's very difficult to coach. And they are very disciplined, and they're a sound football program. They know exactly what they're trying to get accomplished. And so I think it's going to be a good challenge for us.
Robert Morris is playing just its 3rd Big South game Saturday after debuting in the abbreviated 2021 spring season. Head coach Bernard Clark Jr. offers his take on Saturday's matchup with A&T.
They're a team that runs the ball. They do a great job of running the ball. They've always had good running backs and a good offensive line, and that's still their focal point. And the great thing about their defense is they get after it. I mean, they run to the ball. They hit you. They do those good things that you want a team to do. They're all about hitting and tackling and doing the fundamentals of football, and Coach has them doing an outstanding job.
Another historic conference game Saturday is North Alabama hosting Campbell in what is the Lions' first official Big South contest. Campbell is coming off a bye week while UNA is seeking an end to its 8-game losing streak. North Alabama head coach Chris Willis details the importance of the Big South opener as part of the program's transition to Division I.
Considering how, each year has gone through this transition, you go back to last year only playing 4 games total and only playing the fall and not the spring. And then, it does feel good to, know that now games on the schedule have some meaning to them. You go back to 2016 when you didn't, it's the last time you were able to play, our conference game that counted and had meaning to it. So our players look at it like it's 2 different seasons. We just got rid of our non-conference schedule, and now we've got 7 games. Here we go into conference scheduling.
Saturday is also the Big South opener for Gardner-Webb as the Runnin' Bulldogs visit preseason favorite Monmouth. Gardner-Webb enters the game on a 2-game win streak following last week's 52-34 win over Western Carolina. The Runnin' Bulldogs are seeking their first 1-0 Big South start since 2019. Monmouth is looking to bounce back after last week's home loss to Holy Cross, which was just the Hawks' 2nd home defeat since 2017. Monmouth has won the last 4 meetings with Gardner-Webb and is looking to start 2-0 in Big South games for the 5th straight year. Hampton returns to action today following its bye week. The Pirates host Norfolk State in the Battle of the Bay, and it is the first meeting between the squads since 2017. Hampton won that game 16-14. The 2-1 Pirates have averaged 45 points in their 2 wins this season. The 14th all-time regular season matchup featuring a ranked Big South member and ranked non-conference foe is this afternoon as number 20 Kennesaw State hosts number 17 Jacksonville State. The Big South has won 7 of those contests, one of which was the Owls' 60-52 win in 5 overtimes over the Gamecocks in 2018. That's the Week 5 Big South football schedule. Enjoy the games and be sure to follow Big South football on ESPN Plus and on social media at Big South Sports.
It was a great Week 4 as we saw Patriot League play open up with Colgate getting the victory at home over Lehigh and a trio of schools pick up big non-league wins. That included Holy Cross knocking off then number 19 Monmouth on the road in blowout fashion. Hi, I'm Maria Travelpiece in the Patriot League studio for FCS All-In. Holy Cross moved back into the top 25 after the win, and they'll return home this weekend to face Harvard in another big test for the Crusaders. Harvard's rushing attack is potent in 2021. The Crimson have rushed for 578 yards in their first 2 games, both blowouts against Georgetown and Brown. Holy Cross linebacker Jacob Dobbs, who had 3 sacks in last week's win at Monmouth, knows the key this weekend will be stopping the run.
Harvard's a great football team. They're a good football team every year. They're extremely well coached. They play hard. They play physical. They got some speed. They have a couple of really good guys in the offensive side. And, they present some challenges to us defensively, but, we're up to the challenge. We're going to do some things, to try to, stop their run game and stuff and hopefully protect against their, play action passes. But at the end of the day, they're a very good football team, and we're going to need another great week of practice in order to beat them.
Lehigh and Bucknell will also host Ivy League opponents in Week 5, and all 5 games this week will be on ESPN+. That includes Colgate traveling to Georgetown for the Hoyas League opener at 12:30 p.m. and Fordham heading to Lafayette for a 3:30 p.m. kickoff. The Rams won on the road at Stony Brook in Week 4, beating the Seawolves for the first time since 1987. Tim DeMorat threw for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns as they cruised to the 31-14 win. Ryan Greenhagen recorded another 17 tackles and continues to lead the nation now with 93 in 4 games. Lafayette is coming off a 24-14 win over Penn in Week 4. Freshman quarterback LaShawn Davis connected with Joe Gillette for a 70-yard touchdown in the third quarter to put the Leopards up 17-14. And 6 minutes later, the Lafayette defense put the game on ice with Billy Schaefer's pick 6.
Well, we have a talented group over there, and Coach McFadden coordinates a really sound defense week in and week out, and got good coaches, and we got good players. And our frontline players are healthy and playing, and they're showing up. You know, Malik Ham is a guy that wreaks havoc on offenses, and Billy Schaefer is hard to block, and he came up with some interceptions. And a lot of the guys, we put a lot of pressure on their quarterback, and we harassed him, and he made some ill-advised throws, and we took advantage of it, and those were our turnovers. And then when you can get a turnover that goes into a pick 6, that's even better. And then we really shut down their run. They had a hard time running. We built that wall, we set the edge, we contained their back, who was a good player. So there was a lot of good plays stockpiled on top of good plays for what ultimately means a very successful game. So really pleased with our defense and how it's coordinated, but also how the guys played.
For more from Jacob Dobbs, John Garrett, and my interview with LaShawn Davis, you can check us out on Twitter at Patriot League TV. Enjoy all of the Week 5 games, and we'll catch you back here next week.
This is Kendra Watkins with the ASUN Conference, and we are back with another segment of FCS All-In as ASUN football marches on Week 5. This week's schedule continues with another ASUN WAC AQ7 battle between Central Arkansas and Abilene Christian. After an idle weekend, Kennesaw State returns to the field against Jacksonville State to host its second regular season meeting between the two programs. And Eastern Kentucky looks to pick up another win in Richmond as the Colonels continue their homestand against Tarleton State. Last week, UCA battled from being down 31-14 at the half and only trailed number 1 Sam Houston by 3 points heading into the fourth quarter. Quarterback Braylon Smith recorded 4 touchdowns for UCA, tossing 2 to ASUN Player of the Week, Tyler Hudson, and 1 apiece to Darius Hill and Luwan Winningham. The Bears travel to Texas holding a 9-2-1 lead in the all-time series against Abilene Christian. Kickoff is set for 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. The Colonels used a 28-3 run to erase a 10-point first-half deficit to defeat Austin Peay. Defensively, EKU finished with 3 interceptions, 4 sacks, and 4 quarterback hurries against the Governors. Defensive back Davion Ross recorded a pick 6 for the second consecutive game and was named Defensive Player of the Week.
It's a great win, and good to get a win against a good ranked opponent in Austin Peay. I think that's going to be a fun game as we both move forward in the ASUN football conference, and excited about them joining our conference next year. But felt like our kids came out and played physical, had a lot of spirit, played with great spirit, and did a lot of really good things, made some plays, both offense, defense, and played solid on special teams. We've got to continue to get better there. But, really pleased with how we played, really pleased with our student section coming out. Maroon Platoon and being loud and proud for us, and then the fans that we had. Another great atmosphere for us here in Richmond and at EKU. We're excited about where we're going with our game day atmosphere and everything. Looking forward to a great homecoming week with no distractions, and Tarleton State coming into town. It'll be the first time we've played them.
Jacksonville State saw its 2-game win streak come to an end with the loss to UT Martin as the two programs combined for 835 yards of total offense. The Gamecocks hit the road looking for its first ever win against the Owls. Last time JSU played Kennesaw State to a 5-time overtime contest in the fall of 2018 that was won by KSU 60-52.
Well, I think locationally, you're geographically close. And that's going to make it a more of a rivalry because your fan base is kind of, a lot of them know each other and familiar with other school and stuff. So I think it's been 2 great games both times we played them.
This has been Kendra Watkins with the ASUN Conference, reminding you to keep it locked into all of our social media platforms on Instagram and Twitter at ASUN Sports, and also like us on Facebook. See you guys next week.
What's up, everybody? Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook here, bring you our Week 3 Ivy League football preview. And as we look at the standings Everyone in the Ancient Eight has a victory already on the season, except Cornell and Brown, both of which have good opportunities to get it done this upcoming Saturday. We'll start on Friday night, as Penn welcomes in Dartmouth, in which should be a very good football game. Penn is looking to get back on the winning track after dropping their game last weekend, while Dartmouth is fresh off of a beatdown of Sacred Heart 41-3. And if you're Penn, you're going to need a much better output from your offense. Defense was ready to play. Offense has to get the job done, and we know the Big Green are very stingy in terms of defense. They don't like giving up yards or even points for that matter. Outstanding output. Should be a great game to kick off the Ivy League football Week 3 slate. We also look at Yale traveling to Lehigh to take on the Mountain Hawks, and Yale's quarterback Griffin O'Connor has been playing some phenomenal football. Their passing game should have a field day, I feel as though, throwing the football against that Mountain Hawks secondary that has been very giving so far this season. Cornell travels to Bucknell to take on the Bison, and this should be an opportunity for Cornell's defense to impose its will. They've been ready to go the first 2 games of the season, 17 points here, 17 points there. So their defense has been ready. They need their offense to step up and join the party. And as we go to Rhode Island, where Bryant plays host to Brown, another interstate matchup for the Brown Bears. And it's all about protecting the football and playing great defense. If Brown can do that, Brown can win a lot of games this season the rest of the way. Their offense can score, but they have to be able to stop people, but they also can't put their defense in harm's way. Now let's get into some of the bigger games on the Ivy League schedule, and we'll start up in Massachusetts, where Harvard travels about 35 minutes south to Worcester, Massachusetts to take on Holy Cross. Maybe 35 minutes by how I drive, but either way, it's close. That's the point. The Crimson bring their run game and their defense into this matchup, and we know both travel rather well. The Crimson has a tremendous tailback in Aaron Shamplin, who has already proven to be one of the more dynamic tailbacks in all of the FCS. And we'll see if what we saw last week from Holy Cross is more of an anomaly or more of a trend to come, because they got back on the right track in their beatdown of the Monmouth Hawks. This should be one of the better games in the entire FCS this weekend. And finally, let's take a look at a matchup of the unbeatens as we go into New Jersey, where Princeton plays host to the Columbia Lions. The Lions have a dynamic duo at running back with Dante Miller and Ryan Young. Both guys are nearly averaging over 100 yards a game, and Miller being at 104, with the Young being at 94 yards a game. Now, defensively, Al Bagnoli's squad is doing a fantastic job on both ends and are finding themselves getting opponents off the field consistently. Princeton's start has been historic, 47 points a game, no points given up, and only yielding about 100 yards rushing total on the season. Quarterback Cole Smith has been on fire, averaging 318 yards passing a game with 6 touchdowns, and keep this in mind, 0 interceptions. And that's the thing, they're not beating themselves, and this is going to be a game that should be fun to watch going back and forth. It's going to be a clean game, one of the most competitive ones on the weekend. I'm excited to see how it plays out. So that's a wrap for this Ivy League football preview as we enter Week 3 in the Ancient Eight. Keep it locked here on ESPN and ESPN Plus for more Ivy League football content.
Next up is the MEAC as we take a look back at action in the league this past week and what's ahead for Week 5.
Norfolk State scored 21 points in the second half, and MEAC preseason Offensive Player of the Year Juwan Carter threw for 2 touchdowns and rushed for another as the Spartans came back to defeat St. Francis 28-16 on the road this past Saturday to improve to 2-2 on the season. Quentin Williams threw for 254 yards and a touchdown in Howard's 22-16 loss to Robert Morris, and Jared Lewis threw a touchdown pass in Delaware State's 47-10 loss at home to Merrimack College. North Carolina Central got 178 receiving yards from Ryan McDaniel in a 37-14 loss to in-state rival North Carolina A&T. All 6 MEAC programs are in action this weekend, with 3 teams playing at home. Morgan State will kick the day off at noon, playing host to St. Francis, while Howard will have its home opener against Sacred Heart, and South Carolina State will play at home for the first time this season, taking on Bethune-Cookman. All 3 games will be live on the MEAC Digital Network on ESPN+. Norfolk State will cross the James River to face Hampton live on ESPN+, while North Carolina Central will hit the road for its second game against a SWAC foe this season in Mississippi Valley State, and Delaware State will travel to Wagner. For more information on MEAC football and the conference's 15 other sponsored sports, please visit MEACsports.com. Follow the MEAC on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at MEAC Sports, and subscribe to the MEAC Digital Network on YouTube.
All right, let's go over to the SWAC. Fred McNair, he's one of my favorites. Alcorn State, down 19 at the halftime, no problem. Couple of sandwiches, some orange slices, he'll make it do what it do.
It wasn't a real big speech. At halftime, the kids came in and got watered down and ate a few peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and ate some oranges and everything, so got a lot of water. And the biggest thing I told them, that this first half ball game was the worst I've seen since I've been coaching football.
The most famous toe of all in black college football right now. Let's get a toe update.
Nights are not good for me. Nights are not good. I'm calling on it. If it was any doubt that I'm saved, my lady would verify that I am saved because I call on Jesus all night. Don't I, baby? There you go.
All right, one of the most anticipated matchups of the weekend, and one that FAMU fans are really pretty pumped up about. Maybe you didn't see this one coming, but Alabama State, FAMU, circle this one.
Well, look forward to it. Great atmosphere I anticipate here at Bragg Stadium. Alabama State's the closest team to us geographically. There's a huge Alabama State following here in the Panhandle of Florida. Here they're bringing a lot of buses, their band, their students.
Sometimes coaches can't tell us everything. We may sit in the stands, sit at home and say, why did you go for it on 4th and forever? Well, sometimes you just don't have a kicker.
We're not able to hold up a flag and say, or a banner and say, hey, our kicker's down and guys, we got to go for it. We're going to have people heckling and we got to just let them heckle.
Quarterback change is in the air. The Noah Bodden era is officially on and popping at Grambling State.
We're definitely not thinking about it. We're playing it. We just feel he gives us the best option to win. We didn't feel he was ready week 1. And then I didn't want to put him in there in week 2 and week 3, versus, the two teams that we were playing. I wanted to make sure that we worked him in slowly, but also build a plan around him that will allow him to be successful.
Now over at Southern, McDaniel is in. Skelton's out, but not out, but not in, but not out.
Everything is by game plan. So if the game plan permits, then it may be. If the game plan doesn't, then it may not. But we can't let a guy like that sit on the sideline that's won a lot of games for us.
Bethune-Cookman, South Carolina State. Well, Coach Pugh said it'll be like cats and dogs, while Coach Sims said it'll be more like...
Excuse the way I say this, it's always a bloodbath. When South Carolina State and Bethune-Cookman have played, I've been here 12 years. It's been a grudge match from the first play until the last play.
Bethune-Cookman, South Carolina State, much more for your entertainment at HBCUGameDay.com. That's it for Monday. We'll talk to you guys throughout the week. Thanks for hanging out with us.
On behalf of the member institutions of our conference, the unanimous approval of our Presidential Board of Directors, I am honored to extend an invitation of membership to Texas A&M University Commerce effective July 1st, 2022, and would love to welcome you to Southland Conference and NCAA Division I.
Tuesday marked a historic day for the Southland Conference as the 8-member conference welcomed Texas A&M University Commerce to the Southland Strong family. Texas A&M Commerce will transition into Division I and FCS football, officially becoming a member of the Southland on July 1st, 2022. The Lions won the 2017 NCAA Division II Football National Championship and have made the postseason 5 consecutive years since 2015. With our last non-conference game of the regular season officially in the books and Southland Conference play underway, let's take a look at last week's Southland Conference Football Players of the Week, presented by Geico. Accounting for more than 300 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns himself, Nicholls' Lindsey Scott Jr. is awarded the Offensive Player of the Week honor. The senior quarterback threw for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also adding 142 yards and a score on the ground in the Colonels' 31-14 comeback victory over North Alabama. Averaging a league-best 95.7 rushing yards per game, he was one of 2 Colonels to run for over 100 yards on Saturday, marking his second straight 100-yard outing. For the second time in 3 weeks, UIW's Kelechi Analabechi is named the Defensive Player of the Week. Holding McNeese scoreless and allowing only 290 yards of total offense, the junior linebacker was a big contributor in the program's first shutout over a Southland opponent. He not only recorded a team-high 10 tackles, but also a sack and a pass breakup in the 31-0 victory. Analabechi leads all Southland defenders in total tackles with 39 so far this season and is averaging 9.8 a game. And Analabechi's teammate Kevin Wynn is this week's Special Teams Player of the Week. The senior punter averaged an impressive 40.2 yards per punt on 4 boots, including 2 that landed inside the McNeese 20-yard line. His longest attempt went for 45 yards, and none of his punts were returned for any yardage. A big congrats to Lindsey Scott Jr., Kelechi Analabechi, and Kevin Wynn, our Player of the Week award winners. Now turning our attention to this weekend, a full Southland slate is on tap for Saturday, with all 6 teams taking the field. Kicking off at noon on ESPN+, the first game of the day will feature McNeese hosting Southeastern. Coming off a bye last week, the 14th-ranked Lions are looking to add another win to their resume and move up in the rankings, while the Cowboys are looking to spoil their fun and secure their first conference win of the season. HBU will travel to Nicholls for the second game of the day at 3 p.m. on ESPN3. Coming off a huge comeback win over North Alabama at home last weekend, the Colonels are looking to start conference play in the win column. The Huskies are coming off a bye last weekend and are looking for their first victory of the season. The day will end as UIW and Northwestern State do battle under the lights at 6 p.m. on ESPN+. Finding itself ranked in the polls for the first time this season, 24th-ranked UIW is looking to continue its winning ways and make it 4 straight victories. Coming off a bye last week, the Demons are hoping they can win their conference season opener in front of a home crowd. Again, here's a look at the full Southland slate for Saturday. Best of luck to all of our student athletes taking the field.
From walk-on to all-conference, Murray State offensive lineman Levi Nessler has developed into one of the top offensive linemen in the league and helping to propel the MSU program to national prominence. Let's take a look.
Football has always been important to Murray State offensive lineman Levi Nessler.
The game of football has meant a lot to me in life. When I was growing up, when I started playing football, I told my mom and dad, I said, I think I want to play football this year. And they kind of told me, that's fine. We'll play football, but, we kind of have a saying in Nessler household, if you're going to do it, you're going to give it all that you have to everything you do. And I really took that to heart. Football has taught me a lot about life, about being a man. There's going to be hardships, and putting the work in and running those sprints. That's hard. Life's going to be hard. You're going to get knocked down in life. Are you going to get back up, or are you going to sit there and lay in self-pity?
Playing football at Murray State has always been a dream for Levi, who grew up in Mayfield, Kentucky, 30 minutes from the MSU campus.
To play at Murray means a lot to me and my family. My granddad graduated from Murray State, and so did both of my parents. They both came to school. They all came to school here. So it's kind of run in the family. I knew leaving high school I wanted to stay close to home, and I knew I wanted to study agriculture when I was leaving high school. We have a farm at home, and that's what I enjoyed doing. They offered me to walk on here and play football at Murray State, and I thought that was the best for me at the time, and I enjoyed every single bit of it. I wouldn't change one thing.
Originally a walk-on, Levi earned a scholarship prior to the 2018 season and has developed into one of the top offensive linemen in the league, earning first-team All-VC honors last year. His bond with his fellow racer linemen has turned Murray State into one of the top offensive lines nationally.
The bond I have with other offensive linemen, man, it's unbelievable. It's tight. Those guys I've played with, we've been here for some of us 5 years together. 5 years is a long time. I was thinking 5 years ago, I was in high school still, and I didn't even know these guys. And we just come in. You spend hours upon hours with each other. You get to know each other. Everything about everybody. Where everybody's came from and what kind of stuff and different things they've had in their lives. And, playing offensive line, to make things successful as the offense and as an offensive line, you have to play 5 across, and those 5 have to be on the same page and understanding, just how one way it might make sense to me might not make sense to somebody else. And learning to accept that there's 5 different guys on the offensive line. We all got to play together. That
bond between the offensive linemen has been driven by the family atmosphere head coach Dean Hood and his staff have fostered.
We just all become a family. It's just been everybody's there for each other. Everybody wants everybody to succeed. There's no individuality on the team. It's a one beat at all times.
What does Levi think about the competition in the OVC?
I think it's a tough league. It's hard. Everybody's going to bring it day in, day out. Game day, you're going to see everybody's best.
From walk-on to all-conference, Levi Nessler has proven hard work and dedication pays off.
Time for our weekly glance around the Southern Conference as the middle of the season has found its way to us. Here's what's happening in SoCon action. Our weekly glance at the Southern Conference standings reveal a trio of teams off to a fast start in conference play. ETSU, VMI, and Mercer will put their perfect marks on the line this coming Saturday. A 4-0 start for ETSU noticeable as they work toward the middle portion of the season unscathed not only in the conference but also overall. As for Chattanooga and the Citadel, this weekend marks the start of conference play for those 2 squads. 3 Southern Conference programs earn national rankings this week. ETSU at 13th and 14th respectively paces the league, while VMI sits 18th in one poll, 22nd in another. Chattanooga is the final team appearing inside the top 25, while both Mercer and Samford continue to receive votes in national polls. It required overtime this past weekend for ETSU to keep that perfect record intact against the Samford Bulldogs. A 27-yard field goal from Tyler Kettner as time expired in regulation pushed the game to overtime, in which a 13-yard touchdown from Quay Holmes on the first extra possession proved the difference maker on a day when quarterback Liam Welch set league and school records for Samford in total offense with 655, passing yards with 582, completions at 56, and attempts at 73. When the dust settled, it was a 55-48 win that allowed the Bucs to start conference play with a W. The Mercer Bears rode a pair of Brandon Marshall rushing touchdowns and a smothering defensive effort to a victory over Furman. Just a single field goal keeping the Paladins from being shut out at home, and the defensive effort for Mercer highlighted by Isaac Dowling, who notched 11 tackles and 4 INTs in a program record-tying day, ultimately contributing to a 24-3 final in favor of the crew out of Macon. Despite quarterback Rogan Wells' 540-yard effort, which included 427 yards passing and 2 touchdowns through the air, 113 yards rushing, and a score on the ground, Western Carolina could not overcome Gardner-Webb's 52 points in what would become a 52-34 loss at the hands of the Bulldogs. The defending conference champs opened league play with a victory over the Wofford Terriers in Lexington. The game highlighted by a career-best 177 yards rushing from Corey Bridey and a pair of touchdowns, including his game-winning carry from 34 yards out. The defensive effort combined with Bridey's big day, leading to a 31-23 win for the Keydets over the Terriers. This week's Southern Conference slate is highlighted by the Military Classic of the South, VMI and the Citadel meeting in Charleston with a 2 p.m. kickoff for the right to take home the Silver Shacko. Wofford and ETSU have a 3:30 kick, with Sanford and Mercer closing things out at 6 p.m., that one taking place in Macon, Georgia. And everything kicks off this coming Saturday with Western Carolina visiting Chattanooga. That's a 1:30 start on ESPN3. That's your look at the Southern Conference for this week's FCS action.
Ralph Ventry here, talking NEC football on FCS All-In, and today I'll highlight 2 first-year starting quarterbacks who have impressed plenty thus far. First, I'll tell you which NEC QB's stock is on the rise, and then I'll examine some amazing stats from another signal caller in the conference. It's time to check in on the NEC stock market. The California kid is taking the Ocean State by storm. When transfer quarterback Gage Maloney was injured in week 1, Bryant freshman Zevi Eckhouse stepped up into the starting quarterback role and has confidently and effectively carried out his on-field duties. After showing some moxie in a week 2 victory over preseason NEC favorite Sacred Heart, Eckhouse had his best day yet in the week 4 win at Marist. In a 34-17 victory, Eckhouse totaled 292 yards of offense. He made the impressive throws and used his legs to move the chains when needed. If you don't want to take my word for it, just have a listen to what 2-time Super Bowl champion Kevin Gilbride had to say about Eckhouse during his first career start. Gilbride spent nearly 30 years coaching NFL offenses, and he had some high praise for Bryant's young quarterback during the win over Sacred Heart.
I'll tell you what, though, you've got to be impressed with this quarterback. Now, he's got a gun, and he certainly watched him throws it really accurately, no problem at all. Look at that throw. Hit the guy right in the helmet. He is just a very confident young man. You know, bodies are flying around him. He very calmly steps up here, finds the open man. That's not the easiest thing to do, and then puts it right on him. This young man he just sees the field. He knows right now where he wants to go with it. He recognized the 2 deep coverage. He hit the post seam that came down through the middle that split the 2 deep safeties, and his accuracy is phenomenal.
He's Bryant freshman Zevi Eckhouse, and his stock is on the way up. Stats amazing. Weston Elliott can sling it, and the stats show it. Coming off his record-setting performance at Delaware State, where he completed 21 of 23 passes for a 14.6 yards per attempt average, Elliott has raised his season completion percentage to 73.8. That's the 4th highest number in the FCS right now. And stats amazing. So keep an eye and an ear out for Bryant's Zevi Eckhouse and Merrimack's Weston Elliott. Eckhouse and the Bulldogs host Brown on NEC Front Row this weekend, and the Merrimack Warriors and quarterback Weston Elliott, they welcome Duquesne to town for the NEC opener, also on NEC Front Row and the NEC On the Run app. See you again next week on FCS All-In.
Let's take a look back at action from this past weekend in the Pioneer League and a look ahead to today's games.
This week in the Pioneer Football League, conference play is officially underway, with 1 week of action completed. The first Saturday featured some wild finishes, a big comeback, and a historic game.
It's the first home game. It's the first home game in 2 years. It's the first game in the Pioneer League, and it is the first Division I game in St. Paul, Minnesota, ever.
The Tommies found great success en route to the program's first Division I win and a 1-0 start to league play. Cade Sexauer threw a pair of touchdown passes as part of his 17 for 24, 194-yard outing. The Tommies' rushing game also added 3 touchdowns, 2 by Tom Loeffler. Reigning champion Davidson secured a 28-16 win over San Diego after trailing by a pair at halftime. The Wildcats outgained San Diego 367 to 205 yards, largely due to a 272 to 27 edge in rushing yards. An offensive showdown in Dayton, Ohio was the site of a big win for the Flyers. Dayton took down visiting Presbyterian 63 to 43, despite the Blue Hosts taking a 23-0 lead in the first quarter. After getting down by 3 scores, the Flyers rattled off 49 straight points. Quarterback Jack Cook was responsible for 5 straight scores and earned the league's Offensive Player of the Week award. On defense, Chris Pepe finished with 3 tackles for loss as part of a 7-tackle outing. He also recorded a forced fumble in the fourth quarter. The freshman defensive end earned Defensive Player of the Week honors. It was a thriller in Des Moines as Valparaiso downed the Drake Bulldogs 24-21. The Beacons took the lead with just over a minute remaining in the game off of an incredible touchdown grab by Jordan Bingham, and the score held. Drake had a chance to even the score as time expired, but the potential game-tying field goal was blocked by Pioneer Football League Special Teams Player of the Week, Austin Martins. There are 5 league games on the schedule today, so here's a look at the full lineup.
Thanks for going all in with us. You can catch every episode of FCS All-In right back here every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell icon to stay up to date on all the latest FCS All-In content. Until next week, let's be sure to keep the conversation going on social media by using the hashtag FCS All-In.